good that the Earth's frequency is high now, because my understanding of what is happening is we're close to a planetary ascension, which has never been tried before.
Yeah.
And so the frequencies of the planet need to be high, but your own frequencies, you have to modulate them so that you don't blow up. You know, I used to get that a lot when I first started. I used to really spin out. In that I would go into the ether, into the astral, and I'd have to have a real struggle pulling myself back down again. And when I came back, I couldn't remember what had happened in that in between space. So, you know, the frequency of the planet and you know, if people would really just spend a bit of time understanding exactly what frequency is, and that the frequency of the planet is between 0 and 12 hertz, and you raise it above that, and then you spin out into the next dimension, you know, and that's a very dangerous thing for people to do. But having said that, there are many beings, off-planetary beings, and the beloveds who are helping us to raise the consciousness not only of ourselves, but the planet as well. And then they will create the technology to help us go through into the next harmonic universe, to dimensions 4, 5, and 6. And this is quite imminent, I must tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have been noticing a lot of planetary shift in consciousness, especially with social media like Facebook now, because it allows for higher awareness, higher consciousness to disseminate and affect a lot of people, you know, very quickly. And it also bypasses the money system, actually, which helps a lot, because you can now there are some really positive community sites on the things like Facebook, where it doesn't require a lot of money to set stuff up, and then it doesn't take a lot to disseminate their ideas to other folks. So then you see like hundreds of thousands of people clicking on likes and reviewing the messages, and this is really good, because I think in the old days, to try to reach people like that, you need to have your own radio shows and TV shows, and then you have to go through these big conglomerates, who then have to approve what you say. So there's not a lot of space for well, not materially supported efforts to disseminate quickly. But now I do think these things are happening a lot faster, and this definitely helps to lift the planetary vibration frequency.
Yeah.
And then people sending emails and trading messages, and coalescing energies, and again, this word between frequency and vibration, it was such a kind of a sticky point in Keontic science. They had all these diagrams and pages of explanation, what's the difference, and blah blah blah. So I use them interchangeably because my mind isn't remembering all the technical definitions too well, but the overall, in layman's term, it's just people's consciousness, how aware they are about the collective nature of all things, and etc. And I definitely see like big shifts on the planet, which is a really positive thing.
See, and I think Ash used to say this, that you actually know it already, but you just have to remember. And the knowing it is encoded into your DNA. So as you raise your vibration, so you begin to activate your DNA, the encoding that's held in your DNA, and it slowly filters through to the mind. And the process that's used to do that is through your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is actually a receiver and transmitter of information. The Russians have recently discovered this, and they're doing some really interesting experiments with the pineal gland. But you've got all these signals the human body is filled with signals going across little sparks of energy that determine, your health. Your nervous system is one such system that we know about, but science is only beginning to understand, like our immune system, how the signals between the glycoforms around each cell. Glycoforms are crystalline in structure, so they are cells, transmitters and receivers of energy. So every cell in your body has got a little transmitter and receiver, and you get all this information passing through your body. And the processor of all of that is your pineal gland. And your pineal gland sends that all to the brain. And as it sends that encoding into the brain, you can't understand it with your conscious mind. It takes the unconscious mind to understand that. And that's where silencing the mind and quietening the mind is very helpful, because then you can pick up the information that's being transmitted from your DNA to your pineal gland into your brain. Because your brain only stores short-term memory. Your long-term memory is stored throughout your body. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so if you quieten your mind, you can pick up a lot of stuff. That's how I learned a lot of stuff in the beginning. Now it's more natural for me. If I'm puzzled about something, I just quieten my mind and ask myself, okay, please reveal what it is that I need to know. And within days, that information will come to me.
Yeah. I kind of do the same thing. It's a really useful skill, and I hope everybody gets a chance to practice, and I think things like meditation help so much, because in our meditation, we're learning to quiet down the brain mind, where a lot of the static happen, and then just dissolve the energy back into the heart, so we could just retract, and then stay calm. And then I find it's not like you just going into the zone where you're like, I think a lot of people think maybe you just have no thoughts anymore. You don't, not in the meditation, but I think what happens is it retunes your whole energy system. So then when ideas and inspirations come, they're at a higher octave. It's not the staticky, busy stuff. It's more like I think more like inspirational. It's more inspirational and more aware,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people call them different things. Like some people, they call it blessings, some people call it messages from God, some people call it whatever. But it's a higher frequency awareness, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a wave point of view, if you can imagine your day to day, you have waves crossing a line, going up and down over a line very often, and at different frequencies, because your frequency, the height of the intensity of your experience changes on a daily basis. But when you go into meditation, and you can do this with your breath, by breathing in a deep breath, holding it for the same amount of time, breathing it out slowly, and doing that 4 or 5 times, what that does, it extends the frequency with that wave will cross the line. So it reduces the amount of activity in your conscious brain, and so your frequency, your brain, it changes the frequency of your brain, so that your brain can then begin to receive the information that's coming through from the pineal gland.
Yeah.
And it's not a no-thought status. There's no such thing as a no-thought status, because your brain and your consciousness will always be aware of thoughts, because the universe is filled with thought. They might not be your own thought, but they are thoughts. And the thought form is everything that creates manifest form. So to be in manifestation, you're always going to have thoughts. But it's not a state of no thought. It's the lowering the frequency, so that the thought, the mind of God, can permeate into the brain through your DNA, because that's where the connection is. Also, your pineal gland is always transmitting what you're experiencing into the universe. So the universe is picking
Yeah.
up what is happening in your brain and your body and your consciousness. So if you're able to slow it down, bring it down, then you can create a two-way transmission with the universe. That this is me, this is what my mind is saying, this is what my body is saying, and then you can also hear what the universe is saying. And it's important to
Yeah.
have that two-way communication with the universe, so that it's not just a one-way communication with yourself, but you can extend it out into the universe and receive back through your pineal gland the thoughts. The thoughts are just energy forms. You will hear the thoughts coming into your pineal gland. The pineal gland will translate that into you language, if I can put it that way. In other words, with the
Right.
rhythms, because language is also just energy, and it's an expression of energy. So it changes that thought form into an energy that your brain picks up.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think there's so much to this new science, you know. I'm sure a lot of people with now the quantum awareness and just different way of understanding our relationship to the universe, more holographic interaction and that, it'll just springboard a whole new plethora of understanding and way of doing things, you know. And I think it also helps me better understand some of the more traditionally spoken spiritual messages about how we handle ourselves in relationship with others. Like, for example, the other day I went to um, a Dharma class here, and then the teacher was talking about how how in one of the Lojong training, which is training of the mind, it said that you know, we don't, obviously when people instigate, we don't retaliate. We actually learn to become a shock absorber, you know, that
Yeah,
you basically just you actually just take it in, you know, even if the person doesn't make too much sense or something, you actually just take it in. And this was and the response is offer victory and accepting defeat. This was the it's not such an easy thing to accept at an ego level, you know, because a lot of times we want to defend and we want to make our point and all of that. But I think when I try to think about this from a quantum perspective, I can see the vast wisdom in all this. Because if we're trying to learn to be beings like Buddha, that or beings that are more akin to God source consciousness, then we have to be able to withstand the pressure points and the blips and the frictions and the snags that come our way, you know, not just think we're trying to get even or make a point with the individuated discussion, but actually realize that there's a bigger goal here, which is we're absorbing all the static that happen in the universe now that traps people in these, you know, uncontrolled states of emotion. That even though on a tit for tit, like that point basis, you say you do have a better point, but if somebody doesn't get it, maybe the better thing to do at that time is just be a shock absorber. Just let that wave come through and then let it dissipate through you. um you know, and actually the other person, well, I guess the whole point is if we do this enough times with people, they'll actually learn to really respect and trust you because they know you won't retaliate and bounce back like a lot of other people. So then they wind up picking up these attributes by learning through example, um, you know, how to do it. So then they can gradually become shock absorbers. And if enough people do that, then it gives a certain pacifying, calming energy to the whole holographic pool we're in, and it just makes the collective creation more stable.
yeah.
I thought that
And
was so
I've found,
nice.
yeah, for me personally, the secret to this, it's about the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And the ego is your identification with the external world. So you get your identity from your external world. Okay. Now, what I try to do is I try to form my own identity of self from within
Yeah.
so that I don't identify. So all the things around me are just forms of energy that I use on a daily basis, and if I don't use them, I give them away.
Yeah.
I don't need a lot of things around me. Most people fill their homes with things because they're so identified with external reality that they're interacting with this external reality all the time. So they have to have more things and bigger things, more beautiful things and more expensive things. So to the point that they they have built up an ego world, so that they can't escape from.
Yeah.
Uh, so for me, it's I've been working hard, for the last 10 years, 11 years, at building my internal identity
Yeah.
of the real self.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes and picks an argument with me, they're not talking to me. They're talking to themselves. Because that's the
Yeah.
way I identify them. They're an inner person. I'm an inner person. You talking like that? You're talking to yourself. You're not
Yeah.
talking to me. I talk to me. You talk to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't pick up the aggression because I don't identify who I am by my external world.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
people picking an argument with me is a useless exercise for them. I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, that's actually, that's so profound and so helpful because essentially you've you've been able to build up such energetic armor.
Yeah, yeah. That negative energy can't come into my field. Because I consciously say I want that energy outside of my fields. I don't let it in. If I try to get in, and people have tried, and I just don't go there because I know who I am, and I don't, and I know I'm a sovereign being, so I can choose how I wish to experience the life I'm living. So if that negative energy comes into my life, I choose not to experience that negative energy. So you talk, I will listen very carefully to what you say, and perhaps I can help you change the energy that's within you. But your energy outside of me can't affect me. You understand? And I often solve other people's problems that way. They'll come in with negative energy, complaining and shouting. That was often with a friend who phoned me and said, my sisters are doing this, my sisters are doing that. And I just pointed her back in the direction of her inner self, of her inner identity. And I said, now, who do you identify with? Why are you allowing this external identity to interfere with your internal identity? Why are you allowing that experience in your life? She said, but I'm not allowing it. Well, I said, well, it looks like it to me you are. But, and as we talked, she began to get a sense of her own internal identity. And she said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I don't even know why I bothered with that situation.